In an interview with Sky News journalist Yalda Hakim, Pakistan People's Party Senator Sharri Rahman appeared to indirectly acknowledge Pakistan's troubled past with terror groups, including long-standing concerns about state links to organizations operating within its borders. The interview, which touched on Pakistan's recent removal from the FATF grey list, took a sharp turn when the conversation shifted to the country's checkered past related to terrorism and its alleged complicity in harboring extremist elements. Responding to questions about Pakistan's record, Rahman has stated, and let me quote, "You keep on talking about the past because it was," she added, "we are fighting terrorism. Pakistan is a changed country now." Hakim pressed further on Pakistan's past tolerance of terrorism, highlighting that terrorists like Sajid Mir were only arrested after years of denial about his presence in the country. Rahman was seen only dodging journalist Yalda Hakim's questions on Pakistan's long history of terrorism. And that's not us saying that. Listen it.
Sajid Mir, the guy who plotted the Mumbai attacks, was suddenly presented after being told that he was... But that is the relationship between the ISI and terror organizations.
I take all your points. I mean, you're citing a long history of engaging with terrorism one way or the other. Okay, you're either fighting it. But we have grown up now fighting not conventional wars anymore. This is the first one I've encountered after a long time. I grew up between the two.
As Pakistan has completely cleaned its record, the tens of thousands of terrorists that existed in the
Pakistan
country,
is fighting very hard to do that.
Brigade 313 is Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. It's an umbrella organization for members of several groups like the Taliban, Lashkar-e-Jangvi, Hakat al-Jihad al-Islami,
Ms. Hakim, I don't know who told you this, but this is, I can produce any number of pages saying all this. Perhaps we should also produce a fact sheet and more than a fact sheet, a digital dossier.
I asked the question, Senator Rahman, because this is you being accountable for what is happening inside Pakistan.
In a statement
issued on the 7th of May following the Indian airstrikes, Jaish-e-Mohammed said that at least 10 members of their family, its chief Masood Azhar, was killed in the strikes in Bahawalpur.
Your point being?
My point being is that these are the leaders of a massive terrorist organization that focuses on attacks in Kashmir. They've said 10 members of their family were killed there.
Leaders.
But I want to know what Brigade 313 is and why analysts, international analysts are saying that's Al-Qaeda in Pakistan.
Most of the international analysts you're quoting are strongly aligned with India's narrative. They tell only India's story.
All right, so let's now address the moot question which was being dodged by Sharri Rahman. What is Brigade 313? To begin with, the brigade was formed in the early 2000s. It's named after the 313 companions who fought alongside Prophet Muhammad at the Battle of Badr. Brigade 313 was led by Ilyas Kashmiri, a former Pakistani army-trained fighter. Kashmiri became one of Al-Qaeda's most prominent commanders before his death in a 2011 US drone strike. It's a hybrid coalition, which means the brigade is drawing terrorists from Lashkar-e-Taiba, Lashkar-e-Jangvi, Harkat-ul-Jihad al-Islami, popularly known as Huji, Jaish-e-Mohammed and several others. Simply put, this brigade operates under Al-Qaeda's umbrella. Brigade 313, validated by Lashkar and Jaish in Pakistan, operates as Al-Qaeda's military arm in the region, reflecting deep ties to Pakistani jihadist networks and even international terrorist groups, according to intelligence sources. And it frequently collaborated with Pakistan's Taliban factions as well. Authors describe this brigade as one of Al-Qaeda's most dangerous and effective formations in South Asia. It's known to have staged high-profile actions such as assassinations of senior Pakistani officials, bombings across Pakistan, and plots connected to the Kashmir insurgency. Although closely associated with ISI, they operate independently of the regular army. Motivated by extremist Islamist ideology, they utilize religious symbolism to recruit and justify violence, spreading propaganda such as Ghazwa-e-Hind via social media sources. And Brigade 313 also targets Kashmiri youth through encrypted apps and religious propaganda to build sleeper cells, incite lone wolf attacks, according to intelligence sources. Again, they produce high-quality, well-edited videos that's also being consumed by Kashmiris having access to advanced audio-visual media facilities. But remember, this is not the only brigade that's operating out of Pakistan. Pakistan's army has multiple brigades apart from the notorious Brigade 313. It's dedicated to global jihad and internal operations. What intelligence sources have told CNN News 18 is that these brigades are equipped with conventional warfare capabilities, even asymmetric tactics that pose significant threats to regional stability and global security. Let's talk about the other one, which was established in 1956, that too with the assistance from the US Army Special Forces, the Special Services Group, or the SSG. Initially named the 19th Baloch Regiment, it's a key component of these brigades. Sources have confirmed to CNN News 18 that the SSG operates under a hybrid warfare doctrine, combining conventional special operations with sabotage. The SSG excels in proxy warfare through militant affiliates and political control mechanisms such as coup. It undertakes foreign internal defense regional surveys, direct action, which also means counter-terrorism and unconventional warfare. Another crucial unit is the 111th Infantry Brigade. It's renowned for its expertise in orchestrating coups. As per top intelligence sources, this brigade played pivotal roles in toppling previous governments in Pakistan back in the year 1958, for Ayub Khan in 1977, for Zia-ul Haq, and most recently in 1999 for Parvez Musharraf. Besides safeguarding Prime Minister, presidents and even Army GHQ, they possess significant leverage over civilian administration, often employing blackmail. And with that, we will now be opening our discussion for our panelists. All right, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. I'm joined in by Ambassador Shashank, who's a former Foreign Secretary of India, and Mr. Anand Ranganathan, a renowned author, also joined in by Shalini Chawla, a distinguished fellow Center for Air Power Studies. Many thanks to you, Shalini, and the gentleman for joining in. Shalini, I want to first begin by the kind of dodging that's been done over here in this interview by Sherry Rahman. Not only has she called Yalda's own sources, all these foreign analysts aligning with the Indian narrative. She's, Pakistani journalists were quick to take to X, where they have fact-checked Yalda. They're saying that Brigade 313 particularly was banned in 2013, 10 years after Al-Qaeda got proscribed, and in fact 1,100 operatives of 313 were killed, almost 600 also handed over to the United States. How do you speak to those claims of Brigade 313 being made by Pakistani journalists and, say, senators like Sherry Rahman?
So, thank you very much. See, 313 always operated as an understated organization. They never claimed too many attacks. The numbers were not known. It was more like an umbrella organization and kind of a binding glue for many factions, the way it was created. And then obviously it had its adherence to Al-Qaeda. And we saw but number of high-profile attacks being conducted there. But Pakistani journalists making this claim, I am not surprised. What are they supposed to do? In fact, if she's caught on the international channel, not being able to put up her case, that is something which is very normal for the Pakistani media, playing out disinformation. And that is what tactic of terrorism is. That is the leverage you always have with terrorism, deniability. That's the biggest weapon that you get with covert war. So yes, the organization is pretty much there, and then there is also another organization and on the similar fields, Badr Mansoor group, which has been there in Pakistan. So you have these number of offshoots there which are functioning. And they will continue to function, and this denial from state will continue to be there, and this denial becomes essential now because they have the IMF loan. They don't want to be back into the FATF grey list, so there is international scrutiny which is going to be there. So in that, given that situation, the position is very, you can understand why it is happening, but whether the organizations of this nature exist or not, definitely they exist there and they are operating freely in Pakistan.
Absolutely. In fact, news coming in, Ambassador Shashank, that Pakistan has just now allotted 2,550 billion rupees for its defense budget of 2025 up to 26. Reports are indicating that this is a significant rise by over 20%. Can a cash-strapped nation even afford to cut its overall spending and raise the budget by 20%?
Well, as you see that Pakistan has been saying that they have won the war and they have done tremendously well in this conflict with India, raising the profile of their army chief. So he remains the army chief, but he has become a field marshal. So therefore, the Pakistani people are quite willing to hand over any amount of money, and they will willingly do that. The politicians will do it because politicians and political parties are fighting against each other. They would all like to have or go in the good books of the Pakistan army, and then they will be able to. Right now, PPP is in coalition with the Nawaz Sharif party, PMLN, and therefore they are doing the bidding, but they know that they can become takeover as the leader of Pakistan or the otherwise. So therefore, they have to play the game very carefully. And I know Sharri Rahmanji is very polished person and human rights activist. So she has a good reputation all over the world. And then she's saying all this, which means that she's under great pressure.
All right. I want to bring in Anand. Anand, what is your... I think Ambassador has made a very critical point. Of course, the recent promotion of the army chief now to being a field marshal has a role to play in sort of wielding that influence over Pakistani politicians. But what explains the blindness of, say, the World Bank, the IMF, and as we speak, even the Asian Development Bank?
Good evening, and good evening to my fellow panelists. A couple of things out here. I mean, I saw the news bite of the Pakistani senator, and she's saying that Pakistan has been a victim and in fact has been fighting terrorism. Well, Pakistan fighting against terrorism is a bit like Taliban fighting against misogyny, or communists fighting against state control, or indeed Congress fighting against corruption. I mean, these guys are the epicenter of terror. I mean, just a couple of questions. Where is Dawood Ibrahim right now? You know, and when we bomb Bahawalpur, what did we actually bomb? We bombed the epicenter of Jaish-e-Mohammed's whole activities. And this is the state, the country where terrorism was born and terrorism prospers. For them to say that they are fighting against it is just, baloney. But I have to agree with the respected ambassador because, and you as well, because the world is buying into Pakistan, which is, it's perplexing because just a week ago, Pakistan was appointed by the United Nations Security Council on a terror body. I mean, this is unbelievable. But a couple of things that are also important. The world may say or do anything that it wants in favor of Pakistan or may turn a blind eye. The important part is we don't care anymore. And I think that's absolutely crucial. Please remember that in the wake of 26/11, when we wanted to bomb the terror hideouts, we were prevented by this so-called nuclear bluff and we kind of did not bomb the terror hideouts. In fact, quite the opposite. We not only acceded to Pakistan, including our name in that Baluchistan thing, we won't foment trouble, the infamous, shall I say, Sharm el-Sheikh agreement. We also made it the most favored nation. And it happened, it continued for years. Not anymore. Not only have we put an abeyance on the Indus Water Treaty, which going forward is the lever, is the absolute lever by which we can actually turn on and turn off and control Pakistan, whatever it says, and keep to its word that it is actually fighting against terror, which I don't believe it is.
All right.
Secondly, the new doctrine that any act of terror is going to be an act of war is a direct attack on whatever Pakistan may foment. So I think whatever the world might say or do for their own ulterior motives, and please remember, we don't have very many friends. I mean, in the world of real politics, even America is not our friend. So the America might want to have its own geopolitical control over how Pakistan, it sees Pakistan. We don't care anymore, and that is the most important.
No, I totally agree with you over there. Shalini, I'm sure you and Ambassador Shashank would also agree that this seems to have now become India's lone fight. And when I say that, it's also important for India to expose the hypocrisy of Pakistan, rather the hogwash that's being maintained so far. Remember, as far as Sajid Mir's case is concerned, Yalda also talks about it. First, Pakistan declared him dead. It was only after the pressure of FATF gripped the country that they arrested him. We all know the kind of treatment that Hafiz Saeed receives. I mean, you have photographs all over the internet where you can see he's being shot with rose petals on his way to the Lahore court. He's in fact living in Lahore under tight security in a densely populated residential locality. What is one to make of this hypocrisy and the deceit that the world refuses to wake up to?
I mean, yes, I agree with Anandji that, world can buy this narrative, but we will not. But I also believe that, maybe this is a temporary phenomena where world is buying the narrative. So world also bought the narrative that Pakistan is fighting the war on terror, and world saw Osama bin Laden being killed in Pakistan. So this might last for some time, this narrative and the, image that they are trying to create. But I think this will not be something which will sustain, and things will come out, and it are trying to come out, but and it also kind of is a strong message for India that we need to be stronger in our approach on narrative building. That is something which we need to work on. We need to be maybe more prompt on this front. But yes, the narrative of defiance in case of Pakistan and projecting itself as a victim of terrorism is something that you have seen. It has really caught momentum. It will even catch more momentum, and I think even Sherry Rahman was saying that we don't come back attacking India with every attack in Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan itself is facing the blowback of its own strategies. The groups that they created, the Taliban that they created, now they have the most, strained relationship with the Taliban, who's now also supporting the TTP there, which they just don't know how to react to TTP. So that those narratives will continue to come. But I mean, can we really do something about it? Immediate action we have taken of declaring our position very clear that we have zero tolerance from terror coming from Pakistan.
Ambassador Shashank, I beg to differ on the issue of the blowback. Is Pakistan really having to pay? Because in breaking news that's coming in, I can tell you that Dr. Jaishankar has just had a meeting with the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaya Kallas, who herself has condemned the conflict between India and Pakistan, but has not really called out Pakistan's role on harboring terrorism. And similar has been the tone of the US President. I clearly remember during his meeting with the then Pak Prime Minister back in 2019, he had told them clearly and categorically, if you recall as well, to crack down on terrorism being harbored by Pakistan. That was also a pressure that sort of gripped Pakistan, and it led them to arrest Sajid Mir, to take action against Hafiz Saeed. But there's a sharp U-turn in the tone and tenor of the US President as well. What is your reading?
Well, I would say that we had been trying to befriend Pakistan all this time and making as many concessions as possible, starting in 1960 with the 80% of the water of the Indus and its tributaries, and later on also, as Anandji mentioned about the Balochistan issue, about the Siachen, then many other places we wanted to be friendly to them by handing over everything possible to them. And we were telling constantly the USA and UK and others that you take action against Pakistan, but we will not be able to do it because we want to be friendly to them. I think for the first time, India has said that, look, Pakistan has talked too much about nuclear thing. And so they have gone to an extent whereby they have now openly said that this nuclear threat blackmail will not work. And there is some reason behind it why the Indian Prime Minister and the Indian leaders feel so confident that the blackmail will not work. So let us take it for that as accepted. Secondly, we are also now saying that any act of terror will be treated as an act of war, which means that this Indus Water Treaty will remain where it is in abeyance. And nothing will happen till the terrorism goes out. So it's a very clear-cut message, because earlier we were telling them, be friendly, we will be friendly with you, we'll give you everything possible, but please don't spread terrorism in our country. But they said, look, if we don't spread terrorism in your country, then we become like India. We don't want to become like India. We have been set up as a state in the name of Islam, and we have to control all the Islamic countries. In fact, that is the main reason they have been telling the Americans and the Western countries that they will control all the Islamic countries because they have the nuclear weapon. And they will do whatever the Americans want. They will persuade all the other Islamic countries to follow the bidding of the Americans. And therefore, the Americans have been giving them everything possible bilaterally as well as through the multilateral channels. So this is my reading.
All right. Anand, I'm sure you'll agree that there are challenges ahead for India's narrative war. Even though we speak on a day, Prime Minister Modi is going to be interacting with the multi-party delegations. Yes, there have been diplomatic wins as well, as Dr. Tharoor also highlighted, Colombia reversing its statement. But the fact of the matter remains that, let's not forget, Pakistan has been appointed as the chair and vice chair of 2 UNSC committees, something that you also highlighted. That is indeed going to give Pakistan added advantage at the global stage and perhaps also pose threats when it comes to addressing India's own concerns.
No, you're quite right. And I think both Shalini ji and the ambassador have made excellent points. But, let me say, 5 years ago, I would not only have agreed with them and you, I would also have been worried and perplexed as to why India keeps losing the narrative war. But today, I am the least bothered. Let me take 30 seconds to explain why. And I think this is where we have, and this is where we are absolutely decisive. Because believe it or not, we are never going to win the narrative war. Just give you one example. You look at the world has seen, and Shalini ji took the example of Osama bin Laden. That happened 10 years ago. Dawood Ibrahim is there. Hafiz Saeed. It is a terror hub. Despite that, when United Nations, seeing that Pakistan is a terror hub, appoints it an anti-terrorism body, when you have the IMF and other world banking systems giving Pakistan loan, what does it tell you? That means no amount of truth is going to deter the world from executing, or the powers that be from executing their realpolitik policies. Be that as it may. Today we are least bothered about it. And 2 examples shine out. Number 1. The fact that after the Russia-Ukraine war, when the entire West did not want us, in fact were telling us that we are going to impose sanctions on you if you were to buy Russian oil, we said we don't care 2 hoots. We are going to do whatever it is in our interest. And that is why we went ahead. And this one, when we have actually bombed the terror hideouts and 11 air bases of Pakistan without blinking an eye to whatever the world might say or the world opinion might be. I think so now, let us be like, for example, Israel. You know what the world opinion is against Israel for the last 2 years. Does it care about it? No, because it knows the vested interests are the ones that are going to, drive the world narrative. If we have to stand up for our interest, we should not care about the narrative.
All right. Shalini, I want to share some important points that have now cropped up in the economic survey of 2024 to 25 shared by Dawn itself. And it has gone on to indicate that growth has, of course, stumbled. The key targets have been missed. That includes your major crops that are down by 13.5% amid the water crisis. The industry services have been underperforming. Inflation has dropped to a 60-year low in Pakistan. Finance hours are calling it a gradual recovery, perhaps hoping for a turnaround next year. Most important, the GDP growth has only reached 2.68%, which is far away from the 3.56% target. Now, is Pakistan digging its own grave when it comes to, misplaced priorities? Clearly, it's like Marie Antoinette saying that if they don't have bread to eat, give them cakes.
You are absolutely bang on, and I think you're absolutely right about the term that you used, which I also use all the time, is misplaced national priorities. So that has been the reason of Pakistan's economic crisis. They have lived on debt primarily for decades, and even now I always say that the 2 Ds which dominate the budget in Pakistan. One is the debt servicing, which is a large part of the budget, and then is the defense budget that they have. So they have also decided to hike the defense budget. But this is, let me tell you, hiking the defense budget is just like a facade, because it is not from the defense budget that they are getting the Chinese equipment, which come at a different kind of agreement has been there for that. So you see the kind of investment they do on defense, which will be close to about, say, 2.3% or something, and their expenditure on education is below 1% of the GDP. That's the spending that they have. So definitely there the national priorities are misplaced. You see some bit of relief right now, and the prime reason for that relief is that Pakistan has right now got $16 million of rollovers from Saudi Arabia, UAE, and China, which has given them a breather right now. So they will live in that economic crisis, but because the regime does not really care that what is happening with this crisis, they're just very confident of living on loans, which they managed to just swing by. So as you said, they have from IMF 7 billion, and they got from World Bank, they've got a $20 billion development program. So they do manage to get these leverages from the international bodies and community, and this will continue to they will continue to linger on this. This will lead to large amount of protests within the country, but that also, I think, Pakistan regime and the leadership doesn't really care about the fact that how people are.
Ambassador Shashank, should India be also... All right, I think, Anand, I'll just come to you in a bit. I want to ask Ambassador about the changing dynamics in the region. On one hand, you have one axis that's also being facilitated by China. We've seen how meetings, informal meetings between the foreign ministers of China, Afghanistan, and even Pakistan were facilitated at the behest of China. Kabul and Islamabad did not really share those cordial ties in the last few months, but we've seen there's been a change in that as far as those dynamics are concerned. On the other hand, you also have a second axis which is being propped up by Turkey when it comes to Pakistan and Bangladesh. How may India now address these concerns?
They're real concerns. As far as China is concerned, I think China is not being taken as the team leader by Russia. So I think as we have to keep in mind that the Russian foreign minister is very keen. He has talked about somehow Russia, India, and China coming closer to each other, at least have some meetings after the Galwan, where we had stopped everything and we started disbelieving everything that the Chinese said. Now, China on one hand is saying that they would like to give their top of the line aircraft to Pakistan. But on the other hand, they also know, and the social media in China is abuzz with the rumors that Pakistani just could not deal with any of the equipment that was given by the Chinese. So either they would tell the Pakistani that everywhere the Chinese would also sit with them, and then they would carry out the things. Secondly, they know that the CPEC is finished. The Baluchis and then the POK, JK and everyone else is totally opposed to China.
Okay.
So therefore, there are all these positive and negatives. As far as Turkey is concerned, I think India has started a new quad, which I just read that they are now trying to work with Cyprus, Greece, Armenia and India. So hopefully Turkey would learn the lesson that if they committed the genocide of the Armenians, these things will come home to roost for them also. They are not going to set up a caliphate among the Islamic countries because they have this problem that Turkey wants to use the Pakistani nuclear weapon to control everyone else in the Islamic world. Pakistan says that they would like to do it on their own. And the Saudis say that, okay, that is our bomb. We are paying them so much of money. So I think there are these issues which we have to keep in mind also.
Absolutely. Anand, how do you respond to the concerns that we've just discussed? And at the same time, let's not forget that Turkey's backing is now going beyond just ideological backing, because if it was limited to ideological backing, that was very much with Pakistan or say Bangladesh, especially when it comes to OIC nations. But they've stood steadfast by India like a rock when it comes to condemning terrorism, something that Turkey has not done. In fact, it's now going beyond ideological backing, which is coming up with financial backing for countries not just like Pakistan, even Bangladesh.
No, and also you're quite right, but let's remember that back in 1971, all our Arab friends, all 21 of them, actually roundly stood against us and stood with Pakistan. Even our so-called dearest ally, Egypt. And who came to our aid? Israel. So the fact of the matter is, when push comes to shove, we have to be prepared that this is not a battle that can be won very easily, very quickly. And why do I say this? And that is the reason why I think Indus Water Treaty and us keeping it in abeyance is a leash that we must always have, because Pakistan, let's be honest about it, has a visceral hatred to India. And that hatred is totally ideological. I mean, they hate Hinduism and Hindus, and that is the reason why, let's be very honest about it. Why else do you think that all their terror outfits, or the ones that they propose and then prosper, are all named on hark back to the glory of Islam, Jaish-e-Mohammed, the army of Muhammad, 313, the people, the conglomerate that fought with Prophet Muhammad, or, so Lashkar-e-Taiba, everything harks back to them being prepared for a war that is ideological. And when an enemy does that, you have to be prepared that the enemy will never be defeated. It can at best be kept on leash. The case in point is Taliban. I mean, they were bombed to Stone Age. And what is the result now? They are the ones governing Afghanistan. So we have to be ready with what we want, how we want to defend ourselves. That is more important than what Pakistan or the world perceives Pakistan as.
Absolutely. Quick closing thoughts from Shalini now when it comes to India and the fight to de-hyphenate India and Pakistan, especially when it comes to terrorism, because, we can't just say that we can win this war all by ourselves. Perhaps that explains why India is making consistent efforts to take its own narrative out there to the world.
I think, we have to continue with the momentum of our narrative drive, which we are doing it. That is important. But then I agree with what the ambassador said, that more than anything else, I think we have to just focus on ourselves, our strategic posturing, our diplomatic posturing, and very importantly, our military modernization. That needs to be really focused much more, because that power definitely speaks out, and that really is something that deters. So our posturing is very critical. We know, and Pakistan knows actually what happened. The narratives might be there, and it might be at this point in time sound damaging, but India's, I think, economic profile and growth can to some extent manage this by, we can leverage to.
All right. Ambassador Shashank, your closing thoughts in the recent remarks that have come from EU. Dr. Jaishankar has said that it is not India-Pakistan, it is India-Terroristan issue. This is, of course, Dr. Jaishankar's response to a question on India's response to terrorism from Pakistan. Let's not forget, he was meeting with the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kaya Kallas, who, of course, has not really openly condemned terrorism emanating from Pakistan.
But what's happening is that initially, public opinion as well as the governmental opinion in the West was for India and Pakistan to somehow become friendly with each other because they were both nuclear powers. Now they have seen that Pakistan's bluff has been called by India, and terrorists nobody likes. So I think there is a public opinion which is growing in Europe, and even now what we see in Los Angeles, etc., even in America, where they say that, look, enough is enough. We have done enough damage to various other countries, and that has led to the migration of huge amounts of Islamic refugees into different countries, and they are creating problems everywhere. In our case, they are not coming as refugees, but they are coming as illegal Rohingyas or Bangladeshis and Pakistanis. So therefore, they are causing damage to us. I think people understand it. So we have reached a turning point. We have to keep persisting.
And I do agree with you when you talk about the turning point, because now I think from narrative war, it is also going to be India's focus on bringing Pakistan back on the grey list, because that will, I'm sure you'll agree, will limit Pakistan's access to world banking systems. Many thanks to you, Shalini and the gentleman, for joining in. It was a pleasure having you here on The Right Stand. With that, let's now shift focus over to the other big story we've been tracking all day, the disappearance of the couple on Honeymoon, husband's body in a ditch and the wife's surrender. The mystery over the disappearance of Indor's Sonam and Raja Raghuvanshi ended on 9th of June, but then emerged a new angle. The suspected lover, Raj Kushwaha, who materialized Sonam's alleged plans to eliminate the husband from Pati Patni Aur Wo to Sonam Bewafa Hai. The drama has intensified in the past 24 hours. However, several questions still remain unanswered. How did Sonam and Raja and Raj Kushwaha even meet? How long was this affair? How was her wedding to Raja even fixed if she was not willing to marry him? How was the murder plan? Sonam's father, Devi Singh Raghuvanshi, used to run a plywood business with an annual turnover of 12 to 15 crore rupees. With his paralysis, the business is now run by his son and Sonam's brother Govind Kushwaha, who used to work in the billing department as a supervisor on a salary of 20,000 rupees a month, while Sonam joined the HR department 2 years ago. Reports claim that is how they met and eventually got intimate. Let's take a look as to how this murder was even planned and executed. Sonam visited her residence 4 days after her marriage on the pretext of a wedding ritual. Sonam, her boyfriend Raj, plotted this murder during this entire visit, is what sources tell us. And Sonam booked the tickets for her honeymoon trip to Assam and Meghalaya. She even told her husband Raja Raghuvanshi that she wanted to pray at the Kamakhya temple, planning this overall trip to Assam and Shillong. Sonam convinced her husband Raja Raghuvanshi to wear heavy gold chain while being on the trip. Raja was then made to wear a gold chain. Why so? Only to give an angle of robbery to this entire murder, also clearly indicating that this was a cold-blooded murder. Sonam shared couple's location with her alleged boyfriend Raj Kushwaha during the entire trip. The accused Raj shared couple's location with the hired contract killers. Remember, Raj Kushwaha was in touch with Sonam via the phone, the mobile phone. He was not there in person. Hired contract killers then followed the couple from Shillong. Sonam took her husband Raja to a deserted road where Raja was killed. Now, CNN News 18 has exclusively accessed inputs from police sources, and CCTV footage now shows that Sonam was talking to these killers 10 kilometers away from just the crime spot. Sonam returned to Indore on 25th of May via Siliguri. She then met the lover Raj, stayed at a rented house in Indore, dropped then to Uttar Pradesh by a driver, reached Ghazipur via Varanasi. The police had begun the arrests in Madhya Pradesh as she moved various places. The murder weapon, a machete, sourced near Guwahati railway station. No honeymoon photos have raised police and their suspicion in fact even further. A jacket, a raincoat, Raja's mobile screen found at the scene all have helped the Meghalaya police to now piece this entire murder mystery. In an exclusive, CNN News 18 also accessed Sonam's last telephonic conversation with Raja's mother. Sonam Raghuvanshi last spoke to her in-laws while trekking to a steep peak to get a glimpse of a waterfall in the lush mountains of Meghalaya. Raja's mother, Uma Raghuvanshi, likely made the phone call before the couple went missing on 23rd of May. Now, in an unverified audio clip of the phone call, she was first heard inquiring if her son's phone had started working, indicating that she had been trying to reach Raja Raghuvanshi but could not. Sonam answered, and I quote, "We are climbing, we will call once we reach." Also, listen in to this entire telephone exchange between Sonam and her mother-in-law.
हाँ राजा का फोन चल रही हो अभी नहीं हुआ, बस हम चढ़ाई कर रहे हैं, हम ऊपर चढ़ गए फिर फोन लगाते हैं। और आज तो उपवास होगा फिर? मेरा तो उपवास है ना, मेरे को 2-3 बार बोल दिया। मैंने मैं घूमने के चक्कर में अपनी 11 थोड़ी तोड़ूंगी। वही तो फिर मैं अभी फरियाद बना रही तो मेरे को एकदम से याद आ गई कि आज तो मेरे बहू का उपवास वापस। हाँ खिचड़ी बना रही हूँ, फोन आ गया था कि उपवास से, तो मैंने हाउस। हाँ तो कहीं दूध लस्सी जो भी मिल रहा हो उपवास का सामान वो खा लो। अब पहले ऊपर तो चढ़े, जंगल में है, यहाँ से कुछ मिलेगा। बाप रे, मैंने कही थी कुछ ड्राई फ्रूट रख के ले जाओ, तो बोले हाँ क्या करेंगे हम, दो ये जंगल है, पता है घोर जंगल है, एकदम खड़ी चढ़ाई है, चढ़ना मतलब उतरना भी खड़ा ही है और चढ़ना भी खड़ा ही है। तो वहाँ ऊपर देखने के लिए क्या गए? वो अंदर है, वो पहाड़ के अंदर माना रही थी मैंने, तो सुनते नहीं। हाँ चलो वही तो वहाँ क्या देखने पहुँच गए तुम? नीचे से देख लेते, झरना देखने गए थे बड़ा वाला। हाँ नीचे से देखने तो हालत खराब हो गई, तो कुछ नहीं हुआ। तो फिर तो खाना भी ढंग का नहीं है। कॉफी भूल गई तो आधा मग्गा दूध होगा और उसमें है ना 2 गिलास पानी में कॉफी डाल के दे दी। मैंने बोला घर से रख के ले जाओ, रास्ता में ना कुछ पे नहीं जरूरत पड़ेगी, नहीं ले गए दोनों के लिए। ठीक है। अच्छा लगा कि पता नहीं क्या पी रहे, तो मैंने तो फेंक दी उसको तुरंत। वहाँ तो ऐसे खाने के नाम पे कुछ भी नहीं है वहाँ पे। हाँ नहीं मिल रहा होगा, है ना, सांस फूल रही। सांस फूल रही तो लगाते हैं ऊपर पहुँच के। हाँ कोई दिक्कत नहीं, लग गया ना फोन बस। जाके गई खूब पहाड़ पे जंगल में, जैसे अपन केदारनाथ गए थे। मजा आई है, मजा आ गया।
Now, important to highlight what the Shillong police has said, that when they did not find the body of the wife Sonam Raghuvanshi, that was the first giveaway that raised the Meghalaya police's suspicion. Let's also listen to what they have to say.
2 तारीख को हम लोग बॉडी मिला था वहाँ से एंड और पत्नी का बॉडी नहीं मिला. फ्रॉम देयर ओनली वी स्टार्ट गेटिंग क्लूज. So clues started coming up in the sense that oddities were there, and then we looked at the way things actually panned out. Things were not in place. There were about 15 to 20 people working in this case. Or jab small pieces came, that time every piece which came was not a lead. Every piece which came, and when it was pieced together, then it became a lead. So I think just after the second, means by third or fourth, we could piece together all this information, and by third or fourth we could ascertain whether Sonam was she's ये कांड किया था 3 आदमी के साथ.
All right, at the same time, the accused Raj Kushwaha's mother has called her son innocent and said that the police have been lying. Listen in to this side of the version.
ये सब झूठ लगा भैया, सब झूठ. कभी मेरा राज ऐसा नहीं कर सकता. वो अगर जूता पहन के जाता है, सब्जी वाले मिल गए, बोल दिया दादा थे, और बोल दिया बच्चा जूता नहीं, तो ठंड में जूते उतार के चले आता, नंगे पैर आ जाता. जब कहता उसके पास को हम गरीब, वो राज है मेरे बच्चियों को पालता. जब से उसके पापा कैसे हो गए, 2 साल कपड़ा मार्केट में काम करा, दिन भर कपड़ा मार्केट में काम करता था, रात में न्यूज़पेपर डालने जाता था भैया. काम ही करता था वहाँ, सोनम के भाई के यहाँ काम करता था. सोनम के भाई के यहाँ काम करता था. 2 साल हो गए भैया, 2 साल हो गए.
All right, but that's not all, because Raj Kushwaha's neighbor says that Sonam was the mastermind and Raj was just a pawn in this entire incident, and he comes from humble earnings and that he cannot afford to commit a murder because he is also the only son to his mother. Listen in to what the neighbors had to say.
यहाँ के जो लोग मौजूद है सीधे उन्हीं से बातचीत करेंगे. यहीं पे रहता है राज, और राज पे लगा हत्याकारों.
ये तो बेबुनियाद है. इसके पीछे और कोई है, क्योंकि इसकी स्थिति, आर्थिक स्थिति इतनी ठीक नहीं है जिस हिसाब से ये काम कर रहा है. इसके पीछे और कोई लंबा हाथ है. ये तो एक माध्यम है.
बात तो ये सामने है कि राज और सोनम का अफेयर था, इसलिए राजा की हत्या कर दी.
नहीं, ये सब बेवकूफ़ बनाना है. इसके पर्दे के पीछे और कोई है.
पर्दे के पीछे और मतलब मास्टरमाइंड सोनम है.
हाँ,
ऐसा है.
हाँ,
और इस्तेमाल
राज किया गया है,
ऐसा आप मानते हैं?
मेरा मानना है. ये हमारा
राज को आप लोगों ने देखा है यहाँ पर, क्या जानती राज के बारे में?
राज बहुत छोटा था यहाँ पे, कम से कम 8-9 साल से जब किराए से रहने आए थे उनकी मम्मी और 2 बहनें. पापा भी थे, लेकिन पापा का देहांत हो जाने के बाद भी यहीं लक्ष्मणपुरा में ही रहे. और ऐसा नहीं है कि राज ऐसा गंदा आचरण का था तो वो ऐसा काम करेगा. अगर सोनम ने इसको अपने कब्जे में लिया है तो इसका पूरा किरदार सोनम भी है, क्योंकि 9 लाख रुपया अगर निकला है तो राज उनके छीना नहीं है. उनने क्या किया है कि ट्रांसफ़र किया. ये ट्रांसफ़र कहाँ किया, इसकी खोज जब होएगी तो तत्काल निकलेगी. टिकट जो करवाया है सोनम ने, राज ने नहीं करवाया. ये टिकट जाने के लिए सोनम ने ही करवाया, राजा का वापसी के नहीं करवाया. अगर ये किरदार निकलेगा, गुनाहगार कौन होगा? मेन गुनाहगार सोनम होगी. राज का परिवार बहुत गरीब परिवार से है. माँ किराए से रहती है, माँ नौकरी पे जाती है. अगर ये होता तो बेटा अगर इतना पैसा कमा के लाता तो आज मकान बना करके स्वयं के मकान में रहता. ये इसमें मांडर जो भी है सोनम का हाथ किरदार है. और अगर जो भी सजा मिले, मेन तो सोनम को ही मिले, या तो जला दिया जाए या तो उसको फांसी का फंदा में लगा दिया जाए.
All right, getting in breaking inputs because CNN News 18 has learnt from the Shillong police the entire plan of Sonam Raghuvanshi. These are the findings of the Meghalaya police after the unofficial questioning of all the 5 accused who are on transit remand. Sonam and her partner Raj Kushwaha had planned to kill Raja Raghuvanshi days before the marriage was even solemnized. Sonam wanted to create a smoke screen and wanted to pass on the murder as an attempt of robbery. The basic plan charted out was after the death of Raja, she will live as his widow for a few days before pressurizing her own family to let her marry Raj Kushwaha. Initially, the 3 contract killers were assigned to push Raja into the gorge. Sources also say that the initial attempt by the murderers was to show that he was being robbed, and in this scuffle they would push him off. Let's quickly go across to Anshul Singh, who brings us those details. Anshul, take us through the entire sequence of events that have been shared and what is it now alluding to in terms of the larger plan that was being hatched by Sonam Raghuvanshi?
Well, one thing is definitive in the investigation that has been carried out till now, especially after the transit remand of all these 5 accused have been given to the Shillong police. Remember, the official remand has still not started, and the official remand and official questioning will only start once they are brought to Shillong, and then an official custody is taken from the Shillong court. But at this point in time, the unofficial questioning that has happened, this entire plan has now been charted out. What sources have confirmed to CNN News 18 that Sonam actually had planned this entire murder and wanted to show this as an attempt to robbery. And after Raj would have been pushed off, she would have returned back to her home, to Raj's home, and would have lived there for the next few months before pressurizing them to go ahead and allow her to marry Raj Kushwaha. So this was the initial plan. But yes, there was some issues that had come out in this very well chalked out plan that was made out by Sonam and Raj Kushwaha. Sonam and Raj Kushwaha did not expect that Raja Raghuvanshi would be able to fend himself off, would be able to defend himself against 3 people at one go. He was able to defend himself, and it is at this point, when the adrenaline was running high of all these accused and of Sonam as well, that they decided to pick out that sharp object, that machete, and then go ahead and attack him initially from behind. The first attack to Raja Raghuvanshi was from behind, whereas the second attempt was from the front. And then all his ornaments, the expensive ornaments that he was wearing, that were taken by the killers.
All right, we'll try and reconnect with Anshul, but important points that he was trying to make was that Sonam was also trying to create a smoke screen of sorts to only dodge the police when they would come upon the body of Raja Raghuvanshi. Anshul is in fact back with us. Anshul, having said that, have the police been able to find all of those incriminating evidences, whether it is the machete or even the bloodied clothes, which perhaps got bloodied enough when Raja Raghuvanshi was being attacked by Sonam and the hired killers?
Out of these 5 accused, at least 4 of them were present at the crime spot, and hence the clothes that all these accused were wearing on that very day, that becomes a very, very crucial piece of evidence. The sharp object, the machete, has in fact been found by the Shillong police. This was just days after the body of Raja Raghuvanshi that was found on the 2nd of June, and days after that, nearby that location, they were able to find the machete, the weapon that was used to attack him. But yes, there are other evidences that the police is now looking into. The clothes that Sonam was wearing, that becomes of utmost importance. A raincoat has been found. This raincoat belongs to Sonam, but larger investigation needs to happen on that. Another accused, Akash, very interestingly, the manner in which he has been arrested and the clothes that he was wearing on that very day were the same clothes that he was wearing on the day of the murder as well. So the entire plan that was charted out was to live as a widow and then convince the family to let her get married. But after Raj was attacked with a sharp object, this had in fact pushed the entire plan of the charts, and hence Sonam decided to go ahead and meet her accomplice, that is Raj Kushwaha, all the way in Indore. So she leaves Shillong, goes to Siliguri, takes a train, reaches Indore, and then after the people start getting arrested, she leaves from there and travels to Varanasi.
We'll have to leave it at that. Many thanks to you, Anshul, for bringing us all those latest inputs. Anshul, remember, has been sharing all those inputs based on the information that has been shared by Shillong police. Also, earlier during the day, we at CNN News 18 spoke to Raja Raghuvanshi's childhood friend Akash Sharma, who made some sensational revelations. He's gone on to say that Raja was very concerned about the distant approach that had been adopted by Sonam, who almost seemed disinterested in marrying Raja Raghuvanshi. Listen in to what he's had to say.
मैम, जब 1 मंथ पहले शादी से 1 मंथ पहले बातचीत होती थी तो मुझे काफ़ी बार राजा ने बताया कि सोनम मुझसे बात नहीं कर रही है, रूडली बिहेवियर कर रही है। मैं 10-10 बार कॉल कर रहा हूँ तो भी मेरे कॉल अटेंड नहीं कर रही है। मतलब 9 बजे कॉल करेगा तो 12 बजे रिटर्न कॉल आएगा। और बताती थी कि मैं बिजनेस में बिजी हूँ, ये हूँ, वो हूँ, बहुत एक्सक्यूजेस देती थी। ये बात मुझे राजा ने बताई थी। और उसकी ये भी इच्छा थी कि यार आकाश क्या करूँ, शादी करूँ ना करूँ। तो मैंने उसको बोला कि नई इंगेजमेंट है, होता है। तो इस बात को लेके फिर आगे कोई बात नहीं हुई और फिर शादी की डेट आ गई।
ये बहुत बड़ी बात आपने हमसे शेयर की है कि आकाश जी की राजा आपको खुद बता चुके थे कि सोनम थोड़ा हिचकिचा रही थी उनसे शादी करने से, और उनको ये भी कभी कभी महसूस होता था कि वो शायद ये शादी नहीं करना चाहती थी। ये बहुत बड़ी बात है। हमसे बात करने के लिए और ये सारी जानकारी देने के लिए आकाश जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। All right, and taking that conversation further, I'm also joined in by the brother of Raja Raghuvanshi, Vipin Raghuvanshi, who's joining us live on the broadcast. Vipin जी, हमसे जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। सबसे पहले तो शोक प्रकट करना चाहूँगी, इतनी निर्मम हत्या की गई आपके भाई की। इस दुख की घड़ी में हम आपके साथ खड़े हैं। आपने आज ये भी कहा है कि अगर सोनम के हाथ में होता तो वो राजा जी का मर्डर 13 तारीख को ही कर देती। आपको क्या जानकारी पुलिस से पता चली है अभी तक, और आप ऐसा क्यों कह रहे हैं?
देखिए, अभी मुझे पुलिस द्वारा जो इसमें सच्चाई मालूम पड़ी है, उन्होंने कहा है इसने सोनम ने जो है मोबाइल पे, व्हाट्सएप पे और इसमें टेक्स्ट मैसेज पे जो टेक्स्ट करा है, तो इसमें सोनम लिख के डालती है राज को। तो 13 तारीख के दिन, जैसे शादी के अगले दिन ही, जैसे 11 को शादी हुई है और 12 को सुबह सोनम घर पे आती है और 13 तारीख की सोनम ने प्लानिंग बना ली थी तो राजा को मार डालो, जो कि इसमें यहाँ पे सफल नहीं हो पाया तो वो लोग ज़रा। तो इस प्रकार से फिर जो उन्होंने जो है आगे जो अंजाम दिया है, इस टाइप का अंजाम उन्होंने दिया है। तो राजा को 16 तारीख के दिन टिकट बुक करती है सोनम आगे रह के, क्योंकि सोनम उसके घर चले गई थी, राजा हमारे घर पे था, सोनम उसके घर पे थी। तो सोनम ने टिकट बुक करी है आसाम जाने के लिए, जिसमें राजा का जो प्लान था, बोले अपन आसाम नहीं जाएंगे, अपन चलेंगे कश्मीर। कि राजा कश्मीर जाने के लिए, कि इसलिए बोल रहा था क्योंकि राजा कश्मीर जा चुका था एक बार, बोले जगह अच्छी है, अपन कश्मीर चलेंगे। सोनम बोलती नहीं, अपन कश्मीर नहीं जाएंगे, अपन आसाम चलेंगे, आसाम अच्छी जगह पे है। तो राजा ने ठीक है, टिकट बुक कर दिए, तो अपन आसाम चल देंगे।
जी विपिन जी, ऐसी कौन सी वो बातें हैं, शायद आप हमसे वो जानकारी भी शेयर कर सकते हैं जो आपके साथ स्टेट पुलिस ने मेघालय की भी शेयर की होगी, जिससे सोनम रघुवंशी के ऊपर ये सारा शक जा रहा है?
देखिए, जितने अभी तक में पुलिस को सबूत मिले हैं उस प्रकार से तो मुख्य आरोपी है ही गई। दूसरी चीज़, जब राजा को मारा गया था 23 तारीख के दिन, तो राजा को जो है अपने पहले तो इनका प्लान था तो राजा को हादसा दिखाने के लिए, जो कि इसमें सफल न होते हुए ये लोग जो है, इन लोगों ने सफल तो हुए नहीं कि राजा से झगड़े झाटे हुए, लोगों के मारकुटी हुई, जिसमें राजा जो है, राजा इन तीनों पे हेवी हुआ था मारने में, मगर पीछे से राजा के गले पे वार किया जाता चाकू से वार करके राजा गले मारते हैं। तो उसके बाद भी राजा लड़ने के लिए से राजा था, मगर उस टाइम पे क्या होता है, सोनम पीछे चिल्ला के बोलती है इसको मार डालो, उसको तुम तो इसको। तो पीछे से फिर राजा के सिर पे जो है जिस प्रकार से तलवार द्वारा जो है एकदम सिर पे मारा जाता है, जिस प्रकार से राजा नीचे गिर चुका होता है। गिरने के बाद में ये 3 जो लोग थे, तीनों लोग मिलके जो है राजा को उठा के फेंकना चाह रहे थे नीचे, मगर राजा से तीनों लोग जो है राजा को उठा के फेंक नहीं पाए, जिसमें सोनम हाथ लगाती है, फिर चारों मिलके फेंकते, सोनम के साथ में मिलके चारों नीचे फेंकते हैं। उस जगह पे सोनम के शरीर के जो कपड़े थे, उस कपड़े पे खून के दाग लग चुके होते हैं। तो सोनम जो उसकी शर्ट थी, व्हाइट शर्ट, उसको उतार के नीचे फेंक देती है वहाँ से। और जो एक जॉकेट थी, जिस जॉकेट पे अपन अभी तक सोच रहे थे जॉकेट सोनम की होगी, वो जॉकेट भी सोनम की ना होते हुए ये आकाश है, इन लोगों में किसी एक की जॉकेट मिलती है, जो कि वो 7 किलोमीटर आगे जाके फेंकते हैं।
जी, बहुत ही दुखद है जिस तरह की ये निर्मम हत्या हुई है। पर यह भी कहा जा रहा है कि राज कुशवाहा राजा रघुवंशी जी के क्रिमेशन पे भी मौजूद थे। क्या आपकी उनसे क्रिमेशन के वक्त या विवाह के समय किसी भी तरह की मुलाकात हुई, आप हमें क्या बता सकते हैं?
देखिए, मैं राज को जो है कभी जानता नहीं था, मैंने सिर्फ नाम सुना था। मुझे पता था तो ये राज जो है सोनम के ऑफिस का एम्प्लॉयर है, तो हम लोगों ने इस पर ज़्यादा गौर नहीं करा हम लोगों ने, और शादी में आया हुआ तो हमने इस पर ध्यान नहीं दिया। एक एम्प्लॉयर पे ज़्यादा ध्यान देने से हमने सोचा मतलब ही क्या है, तो हमको कोई मतलब नहीं चीज़ें सोचता उस जगह पे। मगर 25 तारीख के दिन सोनम राजा को मारने के बाद 25 तारीख के दिन इंदौर आती है। इंदौर आके राज और ये सोनम जो है एक रूम लेते हैं, उस रूम में रुकते हैं और 2 दिन तक जो है इस प्लान को आगे बढ़ाते हैं। और 25 तारीख के बाद 27 तारीख के दिन जो है सोनम यहाँ से वापस इंदौर से जाती है टैक्सी करके।
जी विपिन जी, ये सारी जानकारी हमारे साथ शेयर करने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आशा करती हूँ आपको जल्द ही आपको आपके पूरे परिवार को न्याय मिले। विद दैट इट्स अ रैप फ्रॉम माय एंड। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर वाचिंग राइट स्टैंड। अप नेक्स्ट इज ब्रास टैक्स विद जाकिर जी।
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Do remember the stakes are back to Operation Sindhur and the kind of damage India inflicted on Pakistan's military infrastructure. News coming in, we're learning Pakistan's Noor Khan Air Base, which is considered a critical node in its military infrastructure, sustained significant damage in India's precision strikes during Operation Sindhur, and there's more proof of the same that we've managed to extract. Intelligence sources confirm that Indian strikes targeted key infrastructure including runways, radar stations, hangars and underground fortified zones. Satellite imagery reveals the destruction of a 7,000 square feet operation complex and command vehicles, as well as crater impacts near areas believed to store sensitive or nuclear-linked assets. Pakistan Army has attempted to downplay the damage, but intelligence agencies backed by high-resolution satellite imagery confirms that around 20% of Pakistan's Air Force operational infrastructure may have been degraded in the strike. In a big revelation, Pakistani security analyst Imtiaz Gul also alleged that the airbase functions effectively as an American fortress, off limits even to Pakistan Army personnel. He cited repeated sightings of US aircraft, undisclosed cargo and restricted access to Pakistan Army officers. Going across to Akanksha Swaroop for a quick update. Akanksha, now military bases like the Noor Khan base have suffered significant damage, and the Indian Armed Forces in fact have been putting out significant proof of the same, but this one is also big in itself. Pakistani security analyst Imtiaz Gul alleging that the airbase functions effectively as an American fortress. What do you make of this big remark that's coming from the analyst?
Right, Krithween, it's also important to talk about the source. Imtiaz Gul is a renowned security analyst based in Pakistan, and he's been reporting on security and defense for quite a while. So when he is saying this has also been, Noor Khan has been a fortress for American defense and that they have access to Noor Khan since 2001, that's big news coming in and straight from the horse's mouth. Gul's statement, of course, has exposed long-standing rumors of US operational access, which he has stated goes back all the way to 2001 for Afghan war logistics and drone operations. Perhaps that's one reason also now, if you were to piece together the US President Donald Trump's own silence when it comes to condemning terror being harbored by Pakistan so actively, and that has been a sharp contrast to Trump's previous presidency, where he was absolutely not supportive of the then Prime Minister Imran Khan. When they had met, he had categorically told him to destroy these terror networks, but the silence this time around of the US President has been deafening, Krithween. So important to also highlight the information that we are sharing right now. This is of course a CNN mega exclusive. These Pakistan air bases that have borne the kind of damages coming straight from Pakistani security analysts. Remember, Pakistan was trying to downplay it at a time when our multi-party delegations have returned after sharing all the information about Operation Sindhur. This is the kind of information that now talks about how the damage has already degraded 20% of Pakistan's air force infrastructure. Remember, this is coming on a day when Pakistan's budget will be allocated, especially when it comes to defense spending. We can also expect now Pakistan to take this entire conflict in view and increase their budget spending. But Pakistan's army is of course trying to downplay the damage that was brought to their air bases in the interim night of 9th and 10th of May. What I can tell you is that the base's proximity to nuclear facilities has heightened security sensitivities, potentially delaying external access for clearance. The satellite imagery, as we had already talked about during Operation Sindhur, had gone on to indicate how close to 7,000 square feet of land near the strike sites had been damaged. Indian attacks have severely hit Saab-e AWACS. This is a strategic location 25 kilometers from Islamabad. It's also adjacent to the Pakistani army headquarters and also the nuclear command center. So this, of course, entire damage is also symbolic. It's not just hit the morale of the Pakistani Air Force bases, but the entire Pakistan army. It symbolizes a direct breach of Pakistan's core defense systems. The base has also Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drones and has served as the nerve center for the Air Mobility Command increased operational bases. Now with, we are also looking at the kind of debris management that is all on. There are heaps of rubbles, as has already been confirmed by various Pakistani senators who are going and doling out interviews to international news publications and various channels. They've gone on to talk about how various air bases have been reduced to a state of rubble. There's debris, and Pakistan's military initially, of course, as we have been talking about, has downplayed it. But the satellite evidence is something they cannot do.
Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. It's a case that has got India shocked and completely riveted. The arrest of Sonam Raghuvanshi as the prime suspect in the murder of her newly married husband, Raja Raghuvanshi. Sonam will be taken to Meghalaya tomorrow. She's going to be there on transit remand. In Shillong, she will have to be produced before a judge, and then it's up to the judge whether to remand her to further police custody or send her into judicial remand. But there is something utterly depraved about this crime. And maybe it's simply the fact that it's the woman in this case who happens to be the alleged murderer. Usually it is the men who are accused of such violent crimes,